Hello everyone and welcome back to the Prado Museum for another of our weekly sessions in English. Today we're going to be talking about this beautiful altarpiece that I have behind me, which is a little sneak peek into a new course that the American Friends of the Prado Museum is offering. This is an introductory course to the Prado's collections that you can take here in person in the classroom of the American Friends. And you can also sign up for this course and take it online from anywhere in the world. We already have a lot of people that are signed up, so I'm so excited to see everybody there, but there is still room for more. So if you're interested, you can go to our website to find out more information. Today we are in room 52A here in the Prado, and this is a room that is filled with objects that were donated in 1969 by the Altarpiece family. And these are such an important addition to the Prado Museum's collections. The Prado Museum is not an encyclopedic museum. This is largely a product of a lot of years, of centuries of royal collecting, and so there's a lot of taste, there's a lot of personality in this museum. It has its own character. And so of course it has its own gaps and it has strengths, and this donation of Gothic art really has helped to fill some of those gaps in the Prado's collections. And when this painting first appeared on the market, it actually looked very different than the image that we see in front of us today, because it was completely covered with an 18th century painting. And when the conservation team cleaned it, then this beautiful example of Castilian Lineal Gothic painting surfaced. The central figure that we see here is Saint Christopher. And Saint Christopher was a 3rd century Christian martyr, and his name means Christ carrier or Christ bearer. And according to legend, he was originally born with the name Reprobus. He was a Canaanite from the 3rd century, and he was exceptionally tall and strong, and he wanted to use these special qualities that he had to serve the most important, the best, the strongest master that he could find. And so he ended up working in the service of the king of his king, the king of Canaan. And when he found out that the king one day was scared of the devil, he thought, well, the devil must be more powerful than the king. And so he went to go and serve the devil. And in the time that he's serving the devil, at one point he realizes that the devil is scared of Christ. And so he thinks, well, the devil must not be the most powerful, it must be Christ. And he wants to go serve Christ. And so he asks people how he can start serving Christ. And people tell him that one thing you can start to do is to start helping the people around you. So he decides to use his strength and his height to help the people around him, and specifically to help cross a river, to cross a dangerous river. This is the time of pilgrimage in Europe, and he was helping pilgrims cross this river because people were drowning when they were trying to cross it. So this is why we see this detail of the water and the fish down here of him crossing the river. And we also get a sense of the strength of Christopher up here, and he's carrying this enormous stone. This is a millstone that would be used to grind things. And these little people here, they have these tiny little figures that are showing us, again, the size of Christopher. These are the people that he's carrying across the river. And they're much smaller, of course, than they should be, but this gives us a bit of this medieval idea of showing us more of the idea behind art rather than trying to reproduce the natural world. And after some time, a small child asked him for help to cross the river. And he'd done this many times, but as he's taking this little child across the river, he starts sinking, and the water almost takes him away. He can barely get across the river with this little child on his shoulders. And when he gets to the other side, then the child explains that he is actually Christ, and that he weighs so much, but because he has all of the weight of the suffering of the entire world on his shoulders. And so that was what Christopher was momentarily carrying. And so we see Christ at the top on his shoulders, and he's carrying this orb which represents the world, and it's separated into sky and earth and water. And when he finally reaches the other side, Christopher initially doubts for a minute that this possibly could have been Christ. And so he says, well, put the staff that you're carrying into the riverbed, and then a tree will grow out of it. And this tree, of course, miraculously grows. And so we see these details of the leaves at the top and also the roots down at the bottom of the tree growing. After this, he was immediately convinced and baptized with the name Christopher, of course, meaning Christ bearer, Christ carrier. This was painted for an altarpiece in the 13th century in Castile, and we see all of these details in the frame of these castles and lions that refer to the coat of arms of the kingdoms of Castile and León. Perhaps this was a royal commission, maybe it was made in honor of the monarchs. It's not exactly clear, but definitely this date situates this painting within the Lineal Gothic style, and that makes it exceptionally valuable because there are very few examples of this style of painting from Castile that have survived to date in this condition, this complete, that we can see in Gothic paintings, in Spanish collections. Linear Gothic painting is characterized by these long, slender figures that are delicate. We have this flowing, graceful use of line, and a beginning interest in naturalism. We can see how the painter is beginning to mix these colors to show how this drapery is starting to flow naturally. This style kind of opens the door for the more natural, international Gothic style that will come in the 15th century. So here in the center we have Christ and Christopher, and they're flanked by different scenes of lives of saints. And so this entire piece looks like this kind of work that's called a vita, which would have one central saint in the middle and lives of that saint on the side. And this piece is a little bit different because we don't have images of the life of Saint Christopher, but we have 3 images of Saint Peter and also of Saint Blas and Saint Millán. And they have wonderful details. We don't have time to get into all of the details, but some of them are absolutely fantastic. Like this image of Saint Blas as he's being decapitated, and we can see that his soul in the form of this child is being taken out of his body by an angel. So it's just full of these wonderful little details. So it seems that whoever commissioned this really wanted to bring together a set of images of saints that were popular at the time for being protectors of some of the things that people were most fearful of. Christopher was the patron saint of travelers, of pilgrims, but also of sudden death. And sudden death was a terrifying idea because if you died immediately without confessing your sins, then that would have meant eternal condemnation in hell. Saint Peter is also an important protector saint. Saint Blas is also an important protector saint of throat ailments and also particularly of those in children. And Saint Millán conducted exorcisms. So these were all things that would have been worrisome to some of the faithful at the time. The images of Saint Peter that we're seeing now are a little bit different, and they do speak of different moments of the life of that saint, and they might be this reminder to the faithful of their commitments to the church in order to receive some of these protective benefits. We don't know exactly who commissioned it, but we might actually have a glimpse of those people here if we look closely, perhaps, because we see these 2 friars who are kneeling and praying, not really taking part in the scenes that surround them in the way that donors do. But if you notice, this one that we're looking at now is a little bit different because he does have a halo around him. Now, we can tell that both of them are Dominican monks because of the clothes that they're wearing, and also that they would be traveling, that they're pilgrims because they have their hoods put up over their heads. But this Dominican monk that has the halo around his head means that he's not just any Dominican monk, and so there is some idea that perhaps this could be Saint Dominic himself, Santo Domingo, Saint Dominic, in this image. And if that were the case, then this would actually be one of the earliest medieval images of Saint Dominic. So it's a beautiful painting in this really unique style that's not easy to see in a lot of different Spanish collections. So it's such a treasure to have it here, and it's just one of the paintings that we'll be taking a deep dive into this new course. So I look forward to seeing you there, and we'll see you here again next Wednesday.